And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning with our great friend Dave Petzo, the Petzo Center, Petzo Financial, on Facebook and Twitter. So, what'd you think of that article I sent you?
I didn't get an article.
I did. I sent you an email probably Thursday or Friday. You didn't get that?
No.
Wow.
No. I read all your stuff.
Really?
I do read all your stuff. There's no way. How would I have flushed it?
I don't know. Not to get too inside. Half the time I say I do things. I might not have sent it, but I thought I did.
Well, I'll look again. Maybe it's spammed out.
I'll take a look.
I'm sure it was a great article.
It was spammed. Is that what you're saying?
I could have been.
I sent it
but
to
I don't know why. You're in my contacts.
Thoughts and prayers?
Yes. The anti-spam.
I sent it to you Friday.
You did.
Were you there Friday?
I was not there Friday.
See, I get jealous when I miss my Dave Petzo on Saturday. Jennifer does a great job.
Thank you.
Awesome show as always. But how dare you have a little time to do some stuff?
Well, a little family thing, a little family
gathering. I'm a little petty about that.
I think so.
I am. My Saturday morning Petzo, but we appreciate Jennifer doing an outstanding job. But I figured I'd give you a little hard time about it. When you get a chance, check this article out, about 20 pages.
Okay.
In the New York Times about Bitcoin. And what they're doing is as you've talked about, they have these Bitcoin farms, and it's on the Columbia River Basin, I guess, in eastern Washington. And they have these towns that have been abandoned because the aluminum industry went under, but they have massive infrastructures because of the hydropower that has made power so cheap that you have these megawatt Bitcoin mining operations. It's like Bitcoin boomtown. Of course, now all of a sudden, instead of shipping most of their power to California, it's being used up. So it's creating a unique strain on the public-private relationship, which we really don't talk about with cyber currency.
Right.
How much electricity is being used. So you'll really enjoy that article. I just finished it over the weekend, but it went into the human detail, but also how much actually goes into producing these Bitcoins. And the more people get in, the more power you need, the more computing power.
Yeah.
So it's very odd. And then apparently, like, they go from 12 Bitcoins to 6 Bitcoins that you can produce. It's not only is the technology fascinating, but the psychology behind it as well. So just something that people are thinking about. China and other countries are cracking down on the power grid, so they're trying to find these places. And in eastern Washington, they're having difficulties as well.
I'll bet they are. No, it's a huge drain on our resources. There's no doubt about it. For what? I mean, you're mining a made-up currency.
Made-up currency, though, that peaked at $19,000 per Bitcoin, and now is around 5 or 6. And
It's a little higher now. It's bounced back up.
Has it?
It has. It's like over 9,000.
Is it up? See, this is why we have you here. Even, when you didn't read my email, you were up to date.
I'm still up on Bitcoin.
Yes. So again, you have this mining that is really kind of a regional story here. It's from Politico on this. Of nothing is really free,
right?
But if it only costs you $1,000 to create a Bitcoin, and you're getting 9,000 out, there you have it. But it's a crisis in East Wenatchee, Washington.
Yes, near my old stopping grounds of Richland, Washington.
There you have it.
Yeah.
So, your thoughts on this? Anything else you'd like to say,
Kevin? I think that it is something that I think various areas are really addressing, and in many countries it's virtually illegal, or it is illegal, and they're cracking down. I just don't see how you have a viable currency where some countries are cracking down on it, and so I just don't see it being having a strong future. And now we also are finally really talking about some of the downside of all these mining operations, which is really putting a strain on the power grid. It really is. Right.
Well, wait till you see this article. It's amazing how the whole technology has progressed, and they have photos, and then they have this guy who's a 20-year-old, self-taught 20-something, who has set up 3 mining servers in his Wenatchee home. Since then, he's made enough property not only to recover the initial investment, but also to pay his monthly mortgage. Now, as a bonus, the heat from the computers keeps his home heated all winter. Benny's saying it's just basically free money, and not only that, they had to open up the windows because it was like 78 during the winter.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's using a lot of power.
He's only got 3 computers. The scary part about this is that the infrastructure isn't really designed for this. So you have servers melting down, cords blowing up, that sort of thing,
right,
all in the name of cheap profits.
Right. Right, and again, it doesn't produce anything. It doesn't make human beings in any way better off. In fact, with all the electrical use, it increases the cost of power everywhere else. So, I don't think it has any social benefit at all.
But it may not have any social benefit, and I would agree with you on that, but it's like the gold rush, if you will, except we're dealing with technology. From the financial community, how big of a disruptor is it?
Well, I don't think it's a big disruptor. It's just that the technology will be a huge disruptor. There's no question about it. But Bitcoin itself, or Petcoin, or whatever the coin is,
there you go
I don't
again.
think. Yeah, well, I'm still trying to get that thing off the ground. And if we keep it up in the news, we'll be all right. But the point here is that these are this really is, to me, has no real value, and I'm not alone, and so therefore it really doesn't have much disruption at this point in time for the financial markets. It will disrupt the way we transact all financial transactions in the future, but right now it hasn't had any disruption at all.
So moving on from cryptocurrency, what is the big news involving the markets?
Well, what I was really, if you will, taking a step back and looking at it last week, I just can't believe how strong the market was. It just doesn't want to go down. It just continues to surge. And again, what tariffs? A week ago, we were worried about tariffs. It was going to be a big trade war, and then all of a sudden, the market is back to where the Nasdaq is at all-time highs again this past week, and we're up solidly year to date. So it is really a big rebound last week. And again, what problems did we have the week before? This market has been symptomatic of that. Every time there seems to be a little bit of a if you will, back when Donald Trump would get into trouble all the time and people were worried that his agenda was going to be set aside, that we weren't going to get anything done, the market would take a day or two and then we roll back. And the economy is really booming. And, Kevin, that to me is the underlying strength of this market.
Our great friend Dave Petzel with us. It's getting kind of boring, though, isn't it?
Yeah, well.
The market's this, the market's that. I mean, don't we need a little downturn here or there?
Well, we did have one.
To add a little excitement to it?
I think the 10%er, we got the 10% move down we've been looking for. It's been taken, just because it hasn't happened 2 years, everybody was calling for it every month of the year last year, and we finally did get a 10% correction. So, again, correction seems to be over, and so does the test of the correction, meaning when we kind of pull back again and try to test that and see if that's going to hold. So far it has, and it looks solid to me after last week that the market's going to hold and probably work its way higher again.
You know, one thing that interests me is this issue involving the area. I was talking to a gentleman. I've been doing some undercover work lately, and somebody said, there aren't really any jobs here in Idaho because essentially our wages are so low. And you have people moving here from California that are buying things, but they're not, starting businesses. How would you respond to that? And we hear that because of our wages are so low here in Idaho that we don't have a lot of industry. Now, I know you don't agree with that, but it's pretty common among people at the coffee shops or whatever. That's their criticism of this area.
Well, I don't know what industry has really high-paying jobs other than what you create on your own, like as an entrepreneur. What you create as an entrepreneur and perhaps have some key people and pay them well. Those are one-off, but as far as any industry, I don't think they pay really highly in any industry outside of technology. Micron has good wages. I don't know what they're talking about there. The people at Micron make decent to very good wages. So I'm not sure what they mean. If you're talking about Bay Area type of wages.
Well, they mean, according to the national averages, Idaho is the lowest or one of the lowest in the country when it comes to wages.
For what?
Working.
Overall? Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's their criticism, that states like Washington or Utah or whatever have higher wages than Idaho.
Well, I didn't think it was much in Utah, for example. I know that some of the very expensive places like Seattle, you can't get anybody to serve coffee. unless you're paying them very well because they can't afford to live there. And so when you're talking about big cities comparing themselves to Idaho, it's tough. But as far as the other more rural types of states, I don't know how we compare, honestly. I thought we were just fine. I hadn't heard a statistic that we were in the very bottom of wages. And on top of that, Kevin, when we're talking about wages in any particular industry, unless you're creating it yourself, unless it's technology, I don't know where wages are that strong. I really don't. They don't pay that well even for auto manufacturing the way they used to because the unions don't control it the way they used to. So whatever industry it is, they're all breaking up. They're all smaller. They're all not growing in any particular industry except for entrepreneurs. You and I and everybody else that are hiring people and creating our own, if you will, ecosphere, then we're the ones that are making or not making the wages.
More with Dave Petzo next. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. And welcome back with our great friend Dave Petzo. So back to the wages. Now, a lot of people in the gubernatorial race say this is an area of improvement. What do you think would be the role of government to do so, if at all, sir?
That's exactly the point, isn't it? It is what it is, and the more we try to interfere with how as governor I'm going to whatever. Okay?
Right, because we're hearing a lot of commercials.
Right.
And people are talking about the big economic plan. Forbes saying Boise, although I say the Treasure Valley is the fastest growing area in the country.
Treasure Valley, is that that's outside of Boise too?
Right, and the surrounding areas. Because if it were just Boise, I don't think that it would be America's fastest growing city. In the article, it did say and its surrounding areas. So
I think you're probably right.
The
Star is getting quite crowded compared to what it used to be.
Not only that, but you see Boise, because y'all are buying so much land for I don't know what, to inhibit growth, you're running out of land.
That's
Whereas
right.
the hinterlands were continuing. We have tons of land.
Lots of land we can build. Yes, there is. There is a lot of land out there.
So what do you make of these politicians when they say, I'm going to bring more jobs or I'm going to increase wages?
It's BS, and the role of government is horrifyingly anti-productive. I mean, horrifyingly. If you want to make sure that you destroy jobs, why don't you go ahead and try a minimum wage law? You want to make sure you have, if you will, technology, robots, whatever, replace baristas and et cetera. You just go ahead and make sure you raise wages. That's government's role, is to destroy jobs. They do a very good job of that by overtaxing, overregulating, and dictating what people should be paid for what kind of work they do. Whenever you do that, the market doesn't function as well, and therefore you are going to have a lack of economic discovery, which means the economy won't grow as well, period. And so when gubernatorial candidates, and I don't know which ones, or I assume they all are talking about it, or talking about those things, it's a feel-good BS thing. There's no way that they can create more jobs or dictate pay or make sure that we have high-paying whatever jobs they are. There's no way government can do that. So, again, we're back to this feel-good thing. We want to have a solution to a gun problem. We want to have a solution to wage problems that are simple, easy, rather than just creating the economic environment that we have here, the beautiful state that we have, and continue to attract people. That, to me, is how we're going to have wages continually increasing here.
All right. No headphones today, so we'll go to Hank. Hank, you'll have to make your statement to Dave Petzo, and then we'll have to move on. But, Hank, you're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Okay. Why does this Bitcoin absorb so much power? I have to confess complete ignorance in this thing. In other words, what are you mining? Are you digging something out of the earth? Exactly. Can you take this? Is this a physical coin that you can take down to, let's say, to U.S. Bank and convert it to $8,000 U.S. money? I mean, I have to confess. Why are you sucking all the power out of the Grand Coulee or out of the hydroelectric thing in the Columbia River basins, which could be used in something that's actually really productive for this? When you're creating something that's basically intangible. It's insanity.
That is true, Hank. Hank, thank you for the call. We'll have Dave Petzo respond to that in a minute. First, traffic and weather. And Kevin Miller here. We continue on with Dave Petzo. So, would you like to explain what Bitcoin is for Hank?
Yeah, best I can. I mean, I'm not a Bitcoin expert. Hank, the reason the power is used is because they mine it with all these computers, and it takes a bank of computers, very high-powered, high-intensity computers, and so the computing capacity is used so much that it literally dims the light bulbs, if you will, because they've got so many computers that are draining so much energy. That's what's being used to cause all of this, quote, and that's how you mine them. You mine them by trying to decipher or break a code that allows you to capture these this made up currency, which is completely made up. It's just out there in the ether. And as far as a coin and going down to the U.S. Bank, the answer is no, they won't take it, but there are people that do. And those are some dealers. I think, Kevin, you've mentioned you have a pal here that is involved in that.
And you have more and more people actually taking Bitcoin. The other side of it is, though, you have people that are major credit card companies not accepting Bitcoin.
That's right. And so there's no way you can, because you have something that bounces around 10%. I have, let's say, a 15% margin on my products if all goes well, and then I get my Bitcoin for it, and then I go to the bank and find out that has gone down by 12% that day. I mean, when something bounces around that much in a day, it is not a legitimate anything. It's not legitimate for any kind of commercial use, because it's way too volatile for people to use it in any kind of a transaction. But at any rate, it is very expensive to trade. There's a commission on both the buy and on the sell, and so again, you have to be very, if you will, very committed to this and committed long term, because the transaction costs are very, very excessive.
So what do you make about Gary Cohn leaving the White House, Goldman Sachs guy, chief economic advisor, because of the tariffs?
Yeah, disappointing that he's leaving, but it also sounds like he has another potential role within the White House, so it wasn't if you will, a loud and breakup that will cause, in my opinion, the president's his itinerary to be set aside. I think it's another person leaving. I'm disappointed. Gary Cohn is well thought of, but at the same time, people leave, and he left because of this. I don't know what the president's going to do. He ran on this. This was exactly what he said he would do. It's just taken him a year to get around to it.
I think it's good news.
Actually, I do too, Kevin. I mean, I don't like the disruption. But it needs to be disrupted. I don't like the idea of us not getting along with North Korea, because that seems dangerous. And yet, because Obama wouldn't do anything for 8 years and other presidents did little, we have fires brewing all over the world that have been created by his predecessors that he has to deal with. And dealing with them is messy. It's noisy, and the fact that we get run over in trade deals is just another messy situation that has to be dealt with. And people want to trade with the United States, so it's nothing but bluster when other people say we're considering a retaliation. Really, the Chinese are going to retaliate against us. For what? Making them stop stealing our stuff? I mean, it's ridiculous. They're going to retaliate how? They can't. We have a huge trade deficit with them.
They wouldn't buy our debt anymore. That's the big fear, right?
No, they haven't been buying our debt for a long time. We were afraid of the Japanese not buying our debt. We were afraid of the Dutch back in the day. It doesn't matter. Everybody always talks about the fact that somebody isn't going to buy our debt. The Chinese haven't been buying it for a long time. They have actually been net sellers the last, I think, 3 years.
Dave Petzo on fire, ready to go here at KIDO Talk Radio. Always appreciate that. Finally, the governor's race, it is heating up.
Yeah.
Your thoughts? You've been friends with Governor Otter for quite some time. What do you think of the people, whether it's Steve Pankey, whether it's Tommy Alquist, whether it's Raul Labrador, whether it's Brad Little? They've all got big shoes to fill.
They do. I think they're all strong candidates. I don't know anything about Pankey, so I really can't speak to that, and I don't know much about some of the others. But I do. But I do think that as far as having experience, having an on-point message, and whether it's business experience or it is business and / politics, they all are experienced. And I think that it's the strongest field that I can recollect. And I think we're going to end up with a good governor in the end. And even from the Democrat side, it's
A.J. Belukov.
I know Belukov is a strong business person. It's not like we're not going to have a pro-business administration here. But it is each has a different message. There's no doubt in my mind. Obviously, we have Alquist coming purely from the developing real estate in downtown Boise perspective, versus, if you will, the politician in Raul Labrador. And I think that those are, and again, not to say Brad Little, he's more of a blend of those two. So being in business as well, I think it's a strong field, Kevin. I'm looking forward to seeing it heat up some more.
Finally, what do you make? I was talking to a buddy of mine. He said, only 11% of our GDP is from farming anymore. Diminishing.
Actually, I would have thought it was even less than that. That
Really?
sounds high to me. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Farming is not. Do you mean in Idaho?
In Idaho.
In Idaho alone. Yeah.
Right. Our gross domestic product, 11% comes from ranching and farming.
Yeah. It sounds about right. It does. It's gotten to be so small now, and it is still. It's a big part
Very
of our
influential,
culture.
though.
It's
They still
hugely.
control,
The legislator, yeah, it is. And think about all the freebies agricultural gets. They've got a strong lobby and a strong presence everywhere you go. There's no question, including D.C.
Maybe they've lobbied you. You seem a little afraid.
I don't want to be taken out by a mad steer.
I'm afraid of everybody, so I'll self-report right now. Dave Petzo, anything else we should be looking out for before? Now, will we hear you on Saturday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll be talking a little bit. I'm going to have some recordings as well.
Right.
Is that like you and I? But I'll be talking some. Yeah.
There goes the look at Oz behind the curtain. What are you going to be covering this week?
We'll see what pops up, actually. But, I mean, the reality, we're not sure what's going to happen this coming week. But I know we will be talking about Micron earnings because they come out this week.
And gas prices going up.
And gas prices going up. Only a little.
No.
It's been pretty stable.
All-time high. That's what we're going to be talking about next. So
An all-time high in gas prices.
Well, that's what we're saying.
Okay.
Dave Petzo, Petzo Center, Petzo Financial.
It's a fake radio? Is that what you...
Wow. Now he's outing me. Dave, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
You're listening to KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good. Saying you should dismiss that whatsoever, and you should obviously carry them because these are important moments for the president, and this is news. What I'm trying to say is I'm focused on the policies, and the policies have created results. We've had more results in the last year on both foreign policy and domestic matters. So what we should be focused on, and what I came to talk about, were the president's policies.
I wanted to
economic
talk about
policies.
those with you. Obviously, he chose not to do that. Look, final question for you. Many people, including myself, raise their kids to respect the office of the presidency and the president of the United States. When he uses vulgarity to talk about individuals, what are they supposed to tell their kids?
Again, I'll be with my kids this morning, and I'll be focused on them on what the president is doing to protect the United States, its citizens, and more important,
So he's
its
not
economy.
immoral. Don't worry about his values. Don't worry about him as a role model.
I've never said that whatsoever, so I don't know.
There we have it. Chuck Todd on Meet the Press going back and forth with, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin on the president's attitude, language, and word choice. Well, because the president called Chuck Todd an SOB. So Chuck Todd's angry. Now, remember, those of you that have some miles on the odometer and those of you that don't, what we heard back in the olden times during the Clinton administration was, well, the president can be a rogue as long as he's doing a good job. Now Chuck Todd is angry.
In what I'm trying to say, okay? So, again, I am very comfortable with what we're doing, okay? And again, I think you're trying to take this out of perspective and implying something I'm not saying.
Oh, fair enough. What are you supposed to say when he's using these vulgarities to kids?
Again, I think you should be focused on what the policies are. He's using those vulgarities in the context of a campaign rally. And obviously, there were a lot of funny moments on that rally.
Yeah, they were hilarious. Anyway, Secretary Mnuchin.
There we have it. Chuck Todd, he's angry. But look, obviously one of the great places, one of the reasons why we live here is people refrain from using the vulgarities, right? They refrain from using the vulgarities, and yet on the other hand, you have people that do use the vulgarities, and unfortunately, kids are exposed to that through popular culture, through everything else, right? That's strangely, unfortunately, the world we live in. So people aren't going to be, blown away, or that's not the first time they've heard those words, unfortunately, when the president calls out Chuck Todd. Now, is it the right thing to do? Well, no. However, the president does reflect the attitude and mannerisms of the folks in America that are not down with Chuck Todd, that believe that, well, the press has an agenda, and we've seen that again and again and again. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller with you here, taking your phone calls about the issues that matter to you. And we have, again, other issues going on. The president today and throughout the week will be visiting the state of California. He will be taking a look at a prototype for the wall, which that's going to upset a lot of folks in California. You think to yourself, is there any way that the state of California can or would or could be saved? Think about that. They're mad that the president is coming to their state. They're mad that the president has called them out. They're mad that the attorney general wants them to, obey federal law. What's wrong with that? We all have to obey federal law, right? We all have to obey the law. And yet you have other folks thinking that they're above reproach. One state in particular with the sanctuary cities, with everything else. It's crazy, the state of California and what they're going through. And that's why so many people are coming to Idaho, right? Okay, so we have that going on, and we have the situation involving Maxine Waters. Now, Maxine Waters, she's a very outspoken critic of the president. Some people believe that Maxine will be running for the presidency. That's right, President Maxine, along with some other folks, Senator Harris as well. People are thinking they're going to bring the magic of California to the rest of the country. I don't know how that would fly. It would certainly be a tilt to the left for the Democrats. But could you see Maxine Waters making a legitimate threat to run for the presidency? Not only that, but to actually be taken as a serious candidate. That's the issue. So earlier she was asked about this on the Joy Behar show that did the review and commentary on Donald Trump and everything else. And then you have Maxine Waters responding.
Mueller does not get him, Stormy will. And so we know that this is going to go on. I'm not going to run from it. I'm not intimidated by him. And so he can keep calling names. I've got plenty for him. As a matter of fact, everybody knows he's a con man. He's been a con man all of his life, long before he ever ran for office. And so this con man Don.
Con man Don. So the shenanigans continue on. So we love Maxine giving us some type of levity so early in the morning. I love that. And somewhere, Ted Cruz is thinking, or Mitt Romney is thinking, why didn't I use that during the campaign? Betsy DeVos, as we said, was on the phone or on the Today Show earlier today. Here's what she had to say about school safety at KIDO Talk Radio, where she talked a little bit about arming teachers. And, of course, you have folks on the left that are very, very angry about this. Well, are they going to have assault weapons? Are they going to be trained by Chuck Norris? Are they going to be able to open carry? And what happens with students and teachers? Then we have this big march going on that's going to happen. And how many people really believe that the students are behind this? I mean, that the students really are behind this march?
There are pieces of legislation before Congress today that can take significant steps in the right direction. Background checks, the Stop Violence Act, they have broad bipartisan support. And the president wants to see Congress act now, take these steps today.
Indeed. Of course, the president will make a big push for this. And Betsy DeVos saying, what's wrong with arming teachers? What's wrong with concealed carry? What's wrong with, if you want to protect yourself and get the training to do so, that you should be allowed to do it? And yet you'll have people rummaging and screaming and yelling, saying this is horrific, that this is the wrong move. Well, then how do you keep people safe? I think that's the big question. How do you keep people safe? That's one topic amongst many that the president will talk about this week in California.
President Trump is headed to the border in San Diego County to check out the prototypes for his wall and attend a fundraiser in Los Angeles. Last week, the Justice Department sued the state over its sanctuary policies that protect undocumented immigrants. Manuel Cunha, who represents hundreds of farmers with the Nisei Farmers League, says federal immigration audits are clashing with new state rules that force employers to warn employees about immigration and ICE visits.
The fear factor is huge. So workers are quitting ahead of time and leaving because they're scared, okay? I've never seen that in my life.
He blames both federal and state governments and wants the president to push for legislation that protects farm workers unless everyone wants higher food prices. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
There we have it. High food prices that if we enforce the immigration laws. High wage prices that if we enforce tariffs. High wage prices on everything, right? As if Americans can be bought and sold. Boy, I can't wait for the president to get to California. I think that's going to be great. So that's one topic at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. The other topic is a situation that Maggie reported on, Maggie O'Mara, concerning just a rather disturbing story coming out of Rocky Mountain High School, where you have a Meridian man who was arrested in connection with an incident at Rocky Mountain High School. Very strange. So here you have this guy, Andrew D. Kim, 23 of Meridian, facing 3 new felony counts according to police. Meridian police say they arrested a 23-year-old man suspected of entering the girls' locker room at Rocky Mountain High School. Now, this guy, Kim, turned himself into police after a family member recognized him on security camera video that was released by the media earlier this week. Eric Exline told Channel 7 the man went into the girls' locker room between second and third periods March 7th. The man is allegedly to have taken video of him having fun with himself using a student's phone. Not a good look for local schools on that one. Not all local schools. But the question is, how did this jabroni get in? And by the way, looking at his mugshot, he would not be somebody I'd invite home to dinner. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning here on KIDO Talk Radio. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So you have this incident of, well, the West Ada School District commenting on this, told Channel 7 the man is allegedly have taken a video, a 23-year-old man, of having fun with himself using a student's phone in the girls' locker room at Rocky Mountain High School. Kim is currently on probation for video voyeurism. Gee, imagine that. He's also charged with violating his probation. Apparently, he was booked in Ada County Jail on one count of sexual abuse of a child under 16 for causing a minor child to witness a sexual act, and one count of burglary for entering the school with intent to commit a felony. The Meridian police were aided again by the Idaho Probation and Parole and the West Ada School District. Think to yourself, what person in their right mind would be doing this? And how long has Mr. Kim been in the Treasure Valley? And what the heck was he doing out on parole? The idea of what would happen if there had been somebody in the high school, in the girls' locker room, young 16, 17, 18-year-old, 15-year-old girls, and you have 23-year-old Mr. Kim accused of doing this thing, and apparently there's video and such. Now, we can opine about the lack of this, that, and the other and beat up on folks. I know the folks at Rocky Mountain High School. We've gone there every year. They're good folks. It's a big school. And this is just part of the national conversation when we're talking about making schools a safer environment. And from what I understand, I mean, you can't just walk into a school. I can recall many years ago, and hopefully this is not giving somebody an idea, where you had a reporter just actually walk into schools with a hidden camera on and see how far he could get before somebody stopped him. And I thought to myself, what a huge invasion of security and privacy at these schools. But if all of a sudden they're going to be a magnet for people that have mental conditions, people that have problems, then this is an issue that not only needs to be addressed in California or in Florida or throughout the country, but locally as well, right? I mean, imagine what it must be like to be a parent right now. Imagine what it must be like to be a parent to drop your kid off at school. And here's the deal. When you have the hype, the hyperbole, the media machine running on overdrive, scaring people, as opposed to coming up with solutions, it doesn't make the situation any better. 580-5436-580-KIDO. Now, again, in the olden days, if anybody was caught in the girls' bathroom or locker room, it would not be good for them. And it is very disturbing of this incident. We'll get your thoughts on that in a minute. 580-5436-580-KIDO. Traffic and weather together.
Gabbard.
And Kevin Miller in the morning here. So we get back to this Meridian man charged with child sex abuse after high school locker room break-in. What should be done with Mr. Kim and the idea of your thoughts on that. Again, he was arrested on charges of sexual abuse of a child under 16 for causing a child to witness a sexual act and burglary for entering the school intending to commit a felony. By the way, he was on probation already, so he is in violation of that, allegedly. Now, apparently, Rocky Mountain High School's principal sent an email to parents Saturday morning saying the school officials had become aware of a stranger on their campus who was seen on school security cameras. Most of the concern, the individual entering the women's locker room between second and third period. At the time, the individual had not been identified. The announcements from the principal and police did not provide more details on what occurred, but it shows you that even though we live in a beautiful place, even though we live in one of the best places to live, you still have these disturbing reports. And can you prevent them? Can you stop them? That's what the national conversation is about, right? And thankfully that this person has been apprehended. But could you imagine if he hadn't? Or how did they get in? I'm sure there'll be a huge, huge report on this. And, you know, as people take a look at whether or not to vote for another levy, maybe they should throw in some security as well.
The White House is pledging help from the Justice Department for training armed teachers, but the president has dropped an idea he had touted earlier about raising the age limit to 21 to purchase semi-automatic weapons. Education Secretary Betsy DeVos will lead a commission to explore other proposals for confronting school violence.
Every state and every community is going to do this slightly differently, but we're going to advance ways in which schools can be made safer for students.
The president is backing a bill to improve criminal background checks on gun buyers, which has broad bipartisan support. At the White House, John Decker, Fox News.
KIDO Talk Radio, your home for Fox News on the radio. So the president's saying you don't have to raise the age of firearm purchase from 18 to 21. Now, you have the loony libs, the libs upset about that. But is there any cognitive proof that raising the age would stop these school violent situations? Of course not. But that doesn't stop the false media narrative from playing out. And the president doing his very best to keep his word. The idea of gun safety, gun this, gun that. This is what the president had to say. Very strong improvement and strengthening of background checks will be fully backed by White House legislation moving forward. Bump stocks will soon be out. Highly trained expert expert teachers will be allowed to conceal carry subject to state law. Armed guards, okay. Deterrent, according to the president. 18 to 21 age limits watching court cases and rulings before acting. States are making this decision. Things are moving rapidly on this, but not much political support, to put it mildly, the president continued. Now, on the other hand, you had Rick Scott, the governor of the state of Florida, saying, I'm going to sign into law legislation that overhauls state policies governing gun sales, the treatment of mental health disorders, and school safety procedures, and allows teachers who have passed training programs to carry firearms in school. Okay, that sounds good. Scott says it balances individual rights with the need for public safety. Okay, we can pass all these laws we want. We still have to go back to Mr. Cruz, who was ignored. His threats were ignored, and who could have been stopped if somebody had done their job, right? We'll talk about it next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.